Yo guys, what is up? It's Teach here, coming at you again with another video over on Scorched Earth on Ark Survival Ascended, and I wanted to show you 22, well, more than 22 honestly, advanced tips that will help you stay alive on Scorched Earth. It's going to help you specifically. These are kind of for this map and they're catered towards that, but I'm going to show you all of those. If you don't mind, smash that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and then consider subbing to the channel. Now, all of these are things that you can use simply, but these are what some of the more talented players that have played Scorched Earth a lot are doing that a lot of people just aren't. So let's go ahead and get started with it. Now, the first thing I want you to take care of, or at least notice, is one of the most valuable things that you can use inside of Scorched Earth is a metal water tank. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but metal water tanks will be irrigated based off the back of your Oasis source. You can use the Oasis source as an irrigation point to create a large amount of actual irrigation throughout your entire base and save you a lot of trouble. Now, the next thing that you can also do is you don't actually need anything at all to start up a actual metal tank. Now, if you, any tank necessarily. So if you have a metal tank and it's just sitting out in the middle of nowhere, and it's not irrigated, Scorched Earth is one of the maps where if I leave the render zone of this metal tank, let's go ahead and get outside the render zone real quick. What's going to happen is it's going to do something called condensation, and that condensation is actually going to cause water to automatically jump inside of that water tank. So you don't actually need to have it irrigated. As long as you leave your render zone every now and then, these water tanks will automatically gain a significant chunk of water. Usually you have to wait a few minutes. We'll see if it actually goes for me, but you know, it is what it is. There it goes. So it's starting. You can see there's 489 in that one, 472 in that one. So they will automatically generate water over time. So that's your first tip that hopefully should help you a ton. Now, your next tip that I'm going to show you is basically this entire map is incredibly unforgiving when it comes to one resource, and that is water. Obviously, I just talked about how to get water when you have a base set up, but if you are on the run, one of the best sources for water that is stupid easy to get a hold of is cactus sap. Cactus sap actually hydrates your body as well as gives you a tiny food buff, but the big thing is it's going to give you a large chunk of water. So store up a lot of cactus sap, and then you can basically use it until you have a canteen, because it's a really easy thing to get a hold of. Obviously, cactuses are everywhere, and you just have to harvest the actual cactus in order to get a large chunk of cactus sap, i.e. water. So you can definitely consume a lot of that. And in late game, once you get a hold of a chainsaw, chainsaws actually take care of this. It's a tree. Wrong one. Just find a cactus like I just did right here, and you can get a significant amount of cactus just by going up to one of those. So definitely utilize that ability. That'll help you a ton. Now, the next thing, when you are running in this game, you are obviously losing stamina, just like I am right now. I'm in GCM, so it's not actually going to show it, but I'll show you what that means. So when I am running, what happens is my stamina goes down, and in order to replenish my stamina, my water and food both go down correspondingly. Now, when you are running, in order to actually cut the amount of water and food you drink in half, or you drink and eat in half when you are wasting stamina, all you have to do is when you are out of stamina, lay down. As soon as you lay down, your character actually cuts the amount of stamina they use. So basically what that means is you're going to regenerate full stamina, take half the amount of water and food that you would take when standing up. If you don't believe me, give it a try now. It's one of the best things that you can do. It sounds like a stupid thing, but early game and even mid game, when you're using that ability, it's going to save you so much water and so much resources just to learn to lay down when you're regenerating your stamina, that you're going to save so much time. So definitely utilize that. Now, again, we're still talking about water for these first few. Now, the next thing I want you to remember is people forget about consumables in Ark a lot. However, in Scorched Earth, it's incredibly important to remember that cactus broth exists. Now, what cactus broth is, you can see, it greatly reduces water consumption. Not only that, but it also gives you the added effect of basically serving like a bug repellent. So all wildlife nearby notices you less. So you can get really close to these creatures and nothing is going to know you're there. All you have to do is tap it, and it lasts for 10 minutes. So that's a huge advantage. And it's also incredibly easy to make because basically you just need cactus. That's the hard part. And obviously I just showed you how easy it is to get that on this map. So cactus broth will be one of your best friends, especially early and mid game when you want to avoid things. And then once you start going caving later game, having a cactus broth will save you so much time, because that reduction in water, as well as the prevention of actually having things see you, is a huge, huge advantage. Now, let's start moving on to some less water-based tips, right? So inside of Scorched Earth, there is a special here, if you want to think about it that way, or a special set called the Desert Set. Now, if you have the Desert Set, it provides you with a pretty good amount. You can see it on the right-hand side. You've got armor. Heat resist is what it really does. This one's a 72 because it's an increase 25, 25. And then you can have the whole Desert Set will give you a huge advantage. Now, the next thing I want you to think about is using the goggles. So the goggles themselves will actually prevent a sandstorm. Now, once you put them on, you do look a little bit goofy, I will give you that. But if you read it, you can actually see further in a sandstorm, because one of the biggest problems in sandstorms, because it's not something that you can like get rid of, you have to deal with it, right? So in order to see through it, if you put on some desert goggles, it's actually going to allow you to actually see through the sandstorm, which is a huge advantage, especially if you're playing PvP and you want to avoid some things. Even if you're playing PvE and you just want to get back to base, having desert goggles will save you a crap ton. Now that's just a warning, but you know, that's what I would highly encourage you to do. All right, next up on our list here is we are going to go ahead and talk about the coffin. Now, the coffin is something that is incredibly useful. Let's go ahead and talk about the coffin here. Coffin is a new engram, so obviously you have to have Bob's tall tales in order to use it. But basically what it is it functions as a bed. So it literally serves as a bed. However, it's placeable like a sleeping bag, which is a huge advantage, obviously. You can rotate it, and you can also change the orientation of it to make it tall versus making it flat, just like this right here. You can open it, and you can also play tricks on people too and actually copy your character in there for PvP purposes, and people will try and shoot that. I promise you they will. But yeah, it's a super huge advantage. You can lay in the coffin itself, and it counts as a rested bed state. So that's a huge thing, and then you can go ahead and hop out of it. But you can also use it as a fast travel point. So using a coffin is basically a movable bed, which is a huge advantage, and everyone needs to take advantage of that. Now, that's an easy one to understand, right? So hopefully you get that. But the next thing is one of the resources mid and late game that you're going to need the most of, right? You are going to need a large amount of polymer and cementing paste. And the best way to get polymer and cementing paste is on the outside of the map, actually. So in the sand dunes. The sand dunes pretty much exclusively spawn bugs, which will give you a huge amount of chitin. That chitin can be taken and moved into cementing paste, which is incredibly useful, obviously. Not only that, but out in the desert spawns mantis. And mantis, per mantis, you're going to get somewhere between 10 and 40, depending on, it's random luck, honestly, depending on the mantis that you kill. So when you kill those mantises, you can get a ridiculous amount of organic polymer. Now that organic polymer can be brought back to base, and then obviously you can use that plus the cementing paste that you get on the outside of the map. So it's one of the strongest things to do, just to run around the outside of the map to get the organic paste and the polymer. Definitely utilize that. Now, next up on our list is the Oasis sword. Now, the Oasis sword, yes, it is something that has to be tamed by somebody with Bob's tall tales. However, it is something that is very useful. I thought I had one over here. Maybe I didn't. We'll see. Let me just look for a second. I think nope, that's not it. I'll just spawn one in real quick. But the Oasisaur is an incredibly useful creature, obviously, for what I showed earlier, but it's also something that you need to take advantage of, not just for its ability to provide you with water, but you can actually use the Oasisaur. It just like landed on top of me. That's kind of funny. But the Oasisaur's back itself has the ability to be a literal greenhouse, but it's the best greenhouse that you could possibly have, because it automatically fertilizes, it automatically irrigates, it gives a 300% greenhouse bonus, and then you can also use a shovel, and it gets a soil tilled bonus, so you get a growth bonus on top of its back. So the Oasisaur in general is going to give you a huge boost to planting plants, so you should definitely have an Oasisaur. As soon as you get the chance, you should tame one. So definitely take advantage of that. Now, the next thing, another tip for the Oasisaur, one of the biggest things that you can do is actually use this right here. Now, this buff, just so you can see it, is Gaia's Embrace. Gaia's Embrace essentially allows you to ignore any negative effects that are on your character, basically giving you ability to stack this buff a whole bunch, 10, 15 times, and you can take that buff and then run around the map with it, which prevents you from taking any diseases, anything like that. So it's going to be able to give you a little bit of a boost. And that little blue line on the outside is how you know you have the Gaia's Embrace buff. So definitely utilize that. It's very valuable. Now, next up on our list is the barrel. Now, the barrel is another one of those things that is inside of the new update if you want to think of it that way. Let's go ahead and get out the barrel storage right here. So barrel, just like you see right here, is useful. However, it's got one special ability. It's normally just storage, and you can store it basically like a large storage box. But you can actually seal the barrel, which means that any spoilable food, unfortunately organic polymer doesn't qualify, will give approximately a 20 to 30 times retention bonus. So specifically for wyvern milk, if you put wyvern milk inside of one of these and then seal it, you can have wyvern milk instead of for a few hours, for a few days, and then you just unseal the actual barrel, take out the wyvern milk you want, and then reseal the barrel, or have one sitting right next to it. Just like, where's my barrel? There it is. Just like this. And then you can take the wyvern milk from one, put it in the other, seal it, and then take the one that you need. So this will actually allow you to store wyvern milk for a lot longer and save yourself a ton of pain when it comes to actually taming your wyverns. So definitely use that. Now, next up on our list is the windmill. Now, the windmill is another thing that is unlocked through the Bob's Tall Tales, but you can actually go, why is it not? There we go. So the windmill, right? So the windmill is something that is going to protect your generators, which is a huge problem inside of Ark Survival Ascended when it comes to Scorched Earth. And it's a giant structure. Now, this giant structure does two things. One, as long as that thing's spinning up there, it reduces the amount of gasoline that you use. So it gives like a 20% boost to the per gasoline usage. So it means that your gasoline is 20% better. And not only that, but it actually protects your generators, which take damage during heat and electrical storms. It prevents them from taking damage, or at least reduces heavily the amount of damage they take, which is a big advantage. So you definitely need to think about having a windmill up whenever you get your base. Obviously, once you get to tech, it's a little bit different because tech doesn't apply to any of those, but it also avoids taking damage. So then your windmill at that point, it looks pretty. That's about it. Now, the next thing up on our list is taming snails. Now, snails can be found in a few different locations. There are basically the artifact caves. So Church Cave, which can be found on the outside of the map, and then the other two caves as well. One can be found over, I'll head over to it so you can see what I'm talking about. But inside of the actual caves that have artifacts on this map, you can find over-leveled snails. And those over-leveled snails can actually be tamed on this map. A lot of people are under the interpretation that they cannot be tamed. However, that is very far from the truth. You can tame all snails on this map as long as you have enough veggie cake for them. Now, the veggie cake can be a little bit difficult to gather because of the fact that queen bees can be a little bit hard to find, but they also are actually where I am right now. But here's one of the caves. You go inside one of these caves, all the caves on this map, this is the chords just so you can see it, 58, 47, they have acatinas. Now, those acatinas will spawn. You can tame them, just kill everything around, and then get a hold of the acatina itself, and it will save you so much trouble because you just have a cementing paste resource, because without beaver dams, acatinas are the way to go on this map. Now, it is a very easy to run these caves compared to other maps, in my opinion, but some people on PvP will definitely be based inside of them, so that might suck for you. So I'm sorry about that. But, you know, it is what it is. All right, now you've seen me basically run around this entire time with this thing that's in my hand, the shovel. The shovel might be the most overpowered new item inside of Ark Survival Ascended. Why is that, right? So if I go ahead, oh, I can't do it here because it's considered rock. If you are running around and find a sand patch, right? So sand patches, obviously, I'm just going to go to the edge of the map so you can see what I'm talking about. But sand patches, there shouldn't be any water nearby. However, the shovel, when you dig down, actually pulls up water using a water spout. You can then drink that water, and it allows you to actually fill your water up. So if you're in a pinch, just dig down. Pretty simple. Now, obviously, there's depleted water source in that area, so you have to kind of go to a new far enough away zone in order to pull the water. But once you get far enough away or that spout stops, you can actually pull up more water, and you just keep using this as your strategy to get water on the outside of the map or just in the middle of the map as well. Now, the other thing that is beneficial about the shovel, when you kill creatures in this map, there is around somewhere between a 2 and 5% chance for them to drop treasure maps. Now, those treasure maps can be used, and you basically activate it and consume the treasure map, and it'll ping a treasure location or a loot location on the map itself. You can then use the shovel once you are close enough to dig up that treasure, and that treasure is now yours. And it's basically the same thing as getting an ascendant tier drop. which is a huge advantage. So you definitely want to have a shovel on you at pretty much all times. It's probably the most valuable thing that you can have. So, and the next thing that's kind of like a mini tip, those treasure chests, by the way, whether they are primitive or whether they are the Ascendant level, they all give incredible loot. Most of the primitive maps that I've gotten so far have had some sort of Ascendant loot inside of it. Excuse me, I had to cough there. But anyways, so the Ascendant level ones obviously are even better, but even if you get a primitive or an Ascendant one, you should definitely utilize it because they are crazy, crazy powerful. Now, next up on our list is something that is very frustrating. Sandstorms. Sandstorms are probably one of the most frustrating things in the entire game because it completely bogs your character down. It drains your stamina. It makes it impossible to see. And there isn't really anything that can avoid sandstorms, right? Wrong. There is a benefit to having a train track pathway set up because trains are unaffected by sandstorms. So what you can do is if you have a train pathway set up like I have here, whenever the actual sandstorm does start, you can hop on your train and go wherever you need to go without having to worry about the sandstorm itself. So sandstorms do not affect trains, and that makes trains incredibly valuable for the purpose of actually avoiding sandstorms. Now, obviously, you can see that I'm traveling on it. You can literally just hit go forwards, and then even though you can't see where you're going, you know where the train's going to end up because you built the track. So you can just end up where you want to go without having to waste stamina or lose creatures inside of a sandstorm. Trains are a huge advantage for that purpose. They can also carry a ton of weight. Obviously, there's no effect for it. And the train itself is an incredibly cool thing. So more of a PvE style thing than a PvP style thing, but it is a very valuable thing in order to use. Now I'm gonna go ahead and set the time of day. Oops, set time of day. Let's go ahead and make it 10 o'clock. But this train car is probably one of the best things that you can use in the game when it comes to solo play or PvE. Not really a PvP friendly thing, but it is still a fun thing to use. So definitely take advantage of train engines because they're just fun to have in the first place. Now, let's go ahead and get off of this because you get it. Trains are cool. Now, next up on my list is the whip. A lot of people forget how valuable the whip actually is. The whip, even though you get it early on at level like 8 inside of Scorched Earth, it is something that is incredibly useful from the very beginning until the very end of the game. Getting a high level whip, something that is Ascendant level or Mastercraft, is also really important because they last a lot longer. But whips give you an increased harvesting ability, basically allowing you to get multiple plants at the same time at a higher rate. So you can actually harvest more berries, harvest more stone, harvest more anything. They can pick anything up on the map, which includes silica pearls. It includes rocks, it includes flint, stone, everything that you can pick up by hand. A whip can do it, but slightly better. Now, the next thing that the whip is valuable for, if you hit one of your tames with the whip, it'll walk, whether it's encumbered or not, in the direction that you hit it with the whip, which is a huge advantage, obviously, especially if you're going to go for a metal run and your tame is encumbered. You can hit it with the whip and it'll automatically move. Now, another thing, if you're picked in PvP, look up and use the whip and you will knock the rider off of the tame they're currently on. Big advantage. So as long as you got a whip, use it to your ability because whips are very good. Now, next thing on our list, small structures, right? So a lot of people forget this, but actually in Scorched Earth, if you kind of circle the map, you're going to notice a large amount of small structures. I didn't even have to look very hard in order to find one. This one right here, right? Inside of all of these small structures, there is always an explorer note somewhere in there. So you can see here's an explorer note. So you can actually do an explorer note run just by actually finding the small structures. Now, the best places to look for small structures, one, the desert, because you can just do small circles like I'm doing right now. There's another one right here, and you can just literally just keep gathering all of them. And then, yeah, it's pretty useful. And then obviously here's another one. Pretty freaking cool. There's another one. So you get the point, right? So basically the point of using those small structures and utilizing them is there's another one. But you can do a note run without very much difficult. You will probably have to have a flyer of some sort, but if you circle the outside of the map like I'm doing right now, it's such a ridiculous amount of actual small structures. So you can get such a crazy amount of experience boost that it's almost ridiculous. Almost easier than the island, honestly, but you can't run. You probably have to have a decent flyer like a Moth or an Argentavis, maybe a Tapejara, or even a foot runner in order to actually do it on foot is possible as well. But those small structures, keep an eye out because that's free experience, so definitely utilize that. All right, next tip on my list. When you are starting off, try and make it to an obelisk, because it's incredibly difficult to survive in the other areas of the map. There are rainstorms, sandstorms, electrical storms, all kinds of stuff. Believe it or not, the actual area around each one of the obelisks is a kind of a gentle zone, if you want to think of it that way. It has reduced for the amount of, hello, I don't want to play with you right now. Those are wyverns that I brought in for a boss fight. But anyways, the area around obelisks is actually at reduced temperature, so it's more temperate. It's easier to survive because you have access to water. You have increased access to resources. You can see that there's trees, rocks, and there's usually metal pretty close by. Stone, silk, everything that you could possibly need is around each one of the obelisks. It does not matter which obelisk you go to. All three of them have incredible value with the fact that they are very temperate and easy to start up around. So do your best to try and make it to one of the obelisks, because minus a few difficult things there, sometimes there's a raptor or two, they are very simple to survive at. And Blue Ob is honestly the easiest because you've got this little cover zone right here, and you can technically survive here without experiencing any major issues. The obelisks are a great way to start up your game. So I would say between, like, when you're trying to figure out where you want to base up, start at one of the obelisks and then kind of just build around that and then move to where you want to go after that point. Makes a huge advantage. So next up on our list, let's go ahead and move on to silica pearls. Now, silica pearls on this map are one of the easiest things to get in the entire game. If you look on my map right now, pretty much the entire river that runs throughout the entire middle of the map, this entire thing is harvestable. Now, if you look inside of it, at nighttime, it is the easiest to do this because the silica pearls actually glow in the dark. And if they're glowing in the dark, obviously they're much easier to see. But if they're not glowing in the dark, it makes it a little bit of a pain in the butt. So during the daytime, I'm going to recommend you don't bother to go inside and look for silica pearls because of how difficult it is to see. However, at nighttime, silica pearls glow, making them much easier to locate inside of these rivers. Now, these rivers, if you just move down them, will have a significant chunk. But again, during the daytime, almost impossible. So wait till around like 12 o'clock or 2400, whatever you have your actual setting to be, and then look for silica pearls at that point. But there is a ridiculous number of silica pearls on this map. All you have to do is go at the right time. Now this, even though it's almost impossible to see during the daytime, there's a bunch right here, right? So there's 1, 2, and you can just see that at nighttime, that would be so easy to see. Grab a flyer, look down, and then bring your whip, and you can easily harvest a few thousand per time you go up and down this river. It's a very useful thing, and it definitely is going to save you a lot of time. So just use this river in the middle, and you'll get a ridiculous amount of silica pearls. Now, next up on our list, this is a fact that some people remember, but not enough people utilize. The jerboas on the map. Obviously, they're incredibly easy, and you're like, oh, it's just like a dodo. What's the point in taming it? Jerboas actually have an incredibly useful ability. They start warning you whenever a storm is going to go off. And if you pay attention to the actual sound that the jerboas make, they will quite literally tell you what kind of storm it's going to be. If they start pawing at the ground, it's going to be superheat. If they start kind of sniffing the air, it's going to be rain. If they start making like a high-pitched squealy noise, usually it's a sandstorm. And kind of like a mid-level kind of like purring thing, almost like a buzz, that is basically going to mean that you have an electrical storm incoming. So they will give you a few minutes warning to each one of the storms, having one on your shoulder or one in your base to tell you. So if you hear sandstorm, probably don't want to go outside. If you hear superheat, probably don't want to go outside. So definitely take advantage of jerboas, because even late game, they're really useful. So yeah, definitely a valuable thing. Now, the next thing on our list, you cannot craft it. Let's go ahead and show you. You cannot craft it easily, but once you get to like the mid game, preserving salts are incredibly useful. Basically what this does, it's going to double the amount of time that your food survives. The only negative is preserving salts do have a spoil timer, and they only stack to 6. So basically they have 2 hours of use, and they are going to double your spoil time, which is really useful for things like wyvern milk, prime meat, Things that you want to get back to your base quickly, try and always have preserving salts on you, because in your inventory included, whatever inventory that you're using, the preserving salt will actually double that spoil timer, making raw or spoiled meat harder to accomplish when you're using prime meat. And then without the waste of wyvern milk, you want to get it to as quick as you can to barrels, and using preserving salts to make it get to those barrels is a huge advantage. So definitely try and take advantage of that. So preserving salts are incredibly useful, and you just need to take advantage of those. Now, let's talk about one of the mid to end game strategies. There is a mountain on this map that is probably arguably one of the best base spots, and two, the best resource rich area in the game. And that mountain, let's zoom out right here, is this right here at 3471. This zone has a couple of things. One, it's got oil fields. Two, it's got metal, sulfur, raw salt, flint, stone, freeze, and pretty much everything that you could possibly need. If I zoom up just a touch, you're going to notice there's a whole ton of resources which can be difficult to find on Scorched Earth. And it's incredibly useful because of the fact that you can run into just about any creature here. These right here, very valuable. Oil blobs that you can place an oil reservoir down on. Metal. More metal. More metal. You get the point, right? This mountain specifically is one of the best things that you can go to in order to harvest a ridiculous amount of resources. It's commonly called Resource Mountain, but you can use it however you want, and it's got everything you need because most of the trees here aren't cactuses, they're actually wood. The small trees right here are cactus, so literally every resource that you could possibly need is on this mountain. Remember this mountain, it's your friend. Now, it's not the best of every resource, but it has everything that you need for a small to mid-sized tribe, and you don't need to worry about going anywhere in order to get it. You can usually build a small little house on these little platforms right here and not have to worry about much, especially if you're in solo player. I would definitely have a fast travel point right here, or make your trains go to this point. It's going to save you a lot of time, and you're going to enjoy it a lot more. So, well, honestly, that's way more tips than I actually told you I was going to give you. It's probably 25, 30 tips, but you know, at the same time, hopefully this video helps you out, and hopefully it is something that will give you a whole bunch of use for the actual game itself. But anyways, other than that, if you don't mind, smash that like button, leave a comment below for the algorithm, and then consider subbing to the channel. All right, teach.